everyone, and welcome back to Verifiably Random, where we explore all the incredible work being done across the Algorand ecosystem. My name is Marc van Leberg, and I'm Chief Strategy and Marketing Officer at the Foundation. And today, I'm joined by Brian Whippo, Senior Director of Integrations and Developer Tooling, and we will discuss everything that is related to AI, a topic that is very close to my heart. I'm very excited about this. Brian, welcome. Great to have you here.
Thank you, Marc. Great to be here.
And congratulations on the promotion.
Thank you. It's a very long title.
So let's dive right in. So AI tools are really changing how developers build, and it's changing at an incredible pace. Like I remember, when we did this first AI hackathon last year with Bolt. Very much all of these projects were really focused on like creating an AI generated front end. But now with everything that's happening with Claude Code and everything, you start seeing developers being able to build entire smart contracts using AI. So from your perspective, where do you see AI helping developers in like real and practical ways? And how has it changed over the last, let's say, 6 months?
Oh my gosh. It has changed almost directionally in the last 3 months. You referred to the Bolt Hackathon last year, and AI tools didn't work very well back then, and people struggled with them and got stuck in these loops. And then the last generation of frontier models that came out like December, January time have completely revolutionized what you can do with AI and do these real practical things and even let an agent run overnight and build you something while you're asleep. So just in the last quarter, basically, there's been a new era of AI, and a lot of the skeptics who didn't think you could do real practical things are now like, "Whoa, this is an incredible tool," and it doesn't make mistakes anymore. It doesn't hallucinate anymore the way that it used to. So we're in a golden era of AI software development or agentic engineering right now, for sure.
Great. And I think one of the things that we released recently that I want to spend a little bit more time on is VibeKit. And Gabe, one of your developer relation engineers, started this project as kind of a little hobby and then launched it. And so it seems like it's really changing how people develop on Algorand. So can you talk a bit about what VibeKit is and what it can do?
Yeah. VibeKit is this incredible composition of a bunch of things that when you bring them together, it unlocks a developer experience to build something with Algorand in a way that's not frustrating, that works well and has some built-in best practices for it. And some of those things are letting you use tools on your computer like Claude Code or an open code with models that maybe you have a preference for. The concept of agent skills, which are these little packages of directions for agents that go beyond your original prompt, and even secure key management on your computer rather than having private keys in plain text. You can use a properly encrypted store for these keys. And then when you mix all that together with the AlgoKit tools and things like LocalNet, so you have a network on your local machine that you can use to iterate and build, the ingredients in this recipe come together into a really delicious dish at the end. And Gabe deserves so much credit for composing these things together in a way that just leveled up Algorand development. So we're incredibly excited. People are using this all the time. We're getting great feedback from people, and this this package of tools allows us to see as well where we can do more to provide AI, right? LLMs with the resources that they need to build stuff successfully on Algorand, which is, at the end of the day, it's really kind of a niche technology in the grand scheme of code out there on the internet.
And it's super interesting, right? Like I've been playing around with VibeKit. So the idea is that you install VibeKit on your computer and then you can link it to any LLM, right? You can pick Claude, you can pick, OpenAI model, Codex. You can pick any LLM you want and then you connect it to VibeKit and VibeKit is basically the instruction layer for the LLM, right? It tells you how to do things on Algorand. Is that the right way to think about it?
Yeah, it sort of mixes everything together in an opinionated way so that you have a great experience, right? Usually, you would have to take different tools, MCP servers, copy and paste files, and connect all of this manually. You'd have to plug it in manually and sort of like build an environment in which you could develop software. VibeKit brings this all together in a way that somebody can sit down, follow some basic setup prompts, get this running in a really powerful way, and you're off to the races. And I know that you've already been extremely successful in using these tools to build like real working applications. So the initial signal that we've gotten from VibeKit users is incredible.
So let me talk to you about this, right? So I built this little app. And so it's a kind of Venmo, Web3 Venmo competitor, and it's using smart contracts. It's using Logic 6. It's using a bunch of like really advanced features
Yeah.
in the app, and it's working. What can go wrong?
Well, I've been finding myself saying a lot recently that in security, 99% is a failing grade. So anytime you have money locked up in an escrow in a smart contract on chain, it's of paramount importance that that money not be stealable, right? So this is a frontier for us. We've come a long way already in just being able to generate smart contract code through our languages like Algorand Python or Algorand TypeScript that makes sense. Right, so you're able to like one shot a smart contract app in a way that you couldn't before VibeKit, essentially. And then that last 1% is really an area of ongoing research and development and feeding AI agents skills and information about security best practices. And then also taking whatever you've created through the agentic development process and running it through security tooling, both AI-based sort of non-deterministic security tooling, but also traditional security tooling like fuzzing, right? That just tries to break something by testing it a million times in different ways. And we think that as we plug in more of these modules and mix together these tools, like we're right on the cusp of being able to one shot an app that works, that looks beautiful, and has the security layer achieved and in the hands of a responsible developer. I won't even say like a capable developer, but a responsible developer that can follow up with human reviews and maybe get an audit and things like this. Now you have a productionized product.
I mean, it's very interesting to think about what this means. Like and indeed specifically what the risks are that are involved in this. I remember I was bragging to Tazos about the fact that I built a logic SIG, and then Tazos asked me one simple question: is how do you make sure the logic SIG cannot be used by somebody else? And uh, the answer, I asked Claude, obviously, I just copied and pasted the question to Claude, and Claude said, "Oops, yes, the logic can be used by other people." So clearly there's issues and there's security concerns with having Claude or VibeKit built everything end to end. And so, but then I also wonder, like, and so a lot of people will say, well, have you looked at the code, and is it actually spaghetti code, or is it like really well structured organized code that can be audited properly? But then sometimes I also wonder what's the other argument you could make is that as long as you have a comprehensive set of like black box and white box tests that fully cover your code, does it matter that the code is spaghetti code, right? If you have a complete set of like testing, like a complete testing framework that you can execute against, does it really matter that the code looks nice or doesn't look nice, or that it's spaghetti code and not spaghetti code? What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, it's interesting. So the looks nice piece is a really interesting dilemma because it used to be in software that if the code looked nice, you had some trust that the human who wrote the code really did what they were supposed to be doing. Now, in the world of agentic engineering, code could look nice and actually have missed a critical scenario. So that's like something to be watchful of. I think the the real lesson is that AI tools can be leveraged and in the hands of like responsible and and knowledgeable and experienced humans that are taking ownership over what the code is doing and the application, and however much risk is baked into that application, you're good. I think people are going to get out over their skis a little bit if they are purely relying on AI without really having the wherewithal to challenge it or to know, when something has gotten to be like untenable or unmaintainable or something like that. But it depends what you're doing. I think with relatively simple apps, I have a pretty high degree of confidence that AI, with some security skills and traditional tooling, could build a secure smart contract. Like that is possible today. When you get into really novel use cases where you're breaking new ground, yeah, there's going to be more risk there. And you're going to want to involve the right people on your team to do that properly.
Yeah. Yeah. It's also interesting to think about like what does that mean to the kind of the role of a developer? Like
Oh,
because
so
to
profound.
me, no, but it's like to me as I was like playing around with VibeKit and building my Venmo app, like I started realizing that actually the role actually is shifting from being a developer who can write software to more of an architect because you're kind of like the architect that is having a conversation with Claude and telling it what you want to do and how you want to architect things, and Claude will give you like a plan, and then you can review the plan and you can say, well, I think there's a gap there and you haven't thought about this and you haven't thought about that, and
Right.
it's like a collaboration with Claude on how you architect things. And then once you've kind of aligned on the plan, you push execute, and then Claude will just write the code for you. And so it feels to me like the role of a developer is fundamentally changing and becomes more interesting. It's not about writing code anymore. It's about how you architect the right system.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's the architecture piece, there's sort of like the product manager piece to be thinking about like what are you really trying to achieve for your user and things like this. And it just doesn't require that much effort to write code anymore. But
Right.
thinking in terms of systems, right? That's where the profession is going, I think. And to understand how to translate the business problem or the product problem back to the system, and then let AI build the code that implements the system. So I think there's a bright future ahead for people that can think in an interdisciplinary way and think in systems and abstractions and things like this. And there may be a challenging world ahead for people that were really just good at writing code, right?
Right. And it also, to me, it also the speed to market is just much higher now, right? Like you can think about a feature, and 5 minutes later you can have the feature.
Yes.
Right. It's like it's just like to give you one example, I was like playing around with this as I said, and so one of the features I wanted to implement was a streak feature. Like, what if if you were to make a payment, once a week, you'd build up a streak, a weekly streak. It took one prompt, and like 1 minute later, the
You're
streak
there.
feature implemented. It's just so the time to market of these things is just speeding up tremendously,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah, somebody wrote on Twitter the other day that it's not so much about the effort to ship things that is like the threshold decision, right? It doesn't take any effort to generate the code. You could have an agent work on this in parallel while you sleep. But knowing what to ship is the differentiator now, right? People that really understand their domain, understand their users.
And it's also like very, if you think about it from a startup perspective, like the key challenge any startup has is you have to find the right product market fit. But now, and product market fit doesn't typically come from somebody with a big brain thinking up something new and
In a
then
vacuum.
taking a year to ship it. Product
Right.
market fit comes from fast iteration. And so I think what these AI tools now enable is to have this incredibly fast iteration, incredibly short feedback loops. So as a startup, you can actually get to product market fit much faster by iterating, right?
Yeah. I'm sure you're familiar with the concept of A/B testing, right? I think we are in the world now where somebody could do ABCDEFG testing, right? And put a number of different approaches out there to users and get that feedback rapidly and like, let the product evolve through that feedback because you're just not constrained by the ability to ship stuff anymore. And action creates data.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's go back to Algorand.
Yeah.
So we have VibeKit. So any other kind of AI specific tools that you wanted to highlight?
Yeah. So VibeKit composes together a bunch of different AI tools and Algorand tools. And there are some building blocks there that we also have available to people a la carte, right? So we have our entire documentation about Algorand, the whole stack, multiple languages available through an MCP server. We're adding agent skills to repos. We are, in some cases, like rewriting resources, including docs and conceptual explanations as well as code examples with LLMs in mind as our primary user or consumer of technical resources. And there'll be more coming as well. But I'm really trying to think about AlgoKit as something that dovetails really nicely with whatever AI tools people are using or have access to in their company. And there's an incredible array of tools and workflows and models. I did an internal survey recently, and the diversity of AI tools and techniques is mind-boggling. Everybody has their own way of approaching things, from you know walled garden, using a frontier model in that company's, CLI, all the way to I'm running my own cluster and I have local models and things like this. So what I hope to achieve is that we have an algo kit that works well in all of these different contexts, so that when developers sit down with whatever tools they're comfortable with, they can either pick and choose from skills and MCP servers and resources, or their AI agent can discover these things on their own and just sort of fall into the pit of success.
Yeah. And how is give me some examples. How is your team specifically using these AI tools to help them in their jobs and their work?
It's a great question. So in the integration space, there's a few things that go on. Sometimes it's just prototyping something really quickly. We might be working with a business. It's like, what would it look like if we did this? And we can spin up a visual prototype of the solution that we discussed in a call overnight using an AI agent, it running in a loop, and have something tangible to look at together the next time we get on a call. And we just did this the other day with a platform that could handle like, bulk disbursements. Another way is that when we're building our own tools internally, developer tools, we're able to move a lot more quickly. And something that happened recently that was remarkable was there was a problem related to how to use and communicate with the Algorand node, and it was a little awkward. And a number of very talented developers considered the problem to be too hard to solve, or maybe they just didn't have enough time to dig into it and change how this API worked. And then, with the advent of these powerful frontier models, somebody took a swing at it with their AI agent, and it basically figured it out overnight. And now, something that we thought was like a pain point we'd always have to live with is something that we can change in a very deep part of the Algorand node to make it easier to get data from the network. So there's all kinds of ways that AI unlocks our ability to move fast with generic capabilities of the chain, but also working with partners and clients, if you will, to rapidly iterate on trying to solve their problems.
Yeah. So you briefly touched on the notion of like agents. And of course, everybody kind of believes that this is the next wave that is coming, is where agents are going to, in a much more autonomous way, will act on our behalf, to shop, to build code, to trade. And so what's your view on, specifically as it relates to Algorand and our DeFi ecosystem? When will we see AI agents trading on our behalf and making money while we sleep?
Yeah, I will say there have been people who wander into Discord to tell us what they're working on who are already doing these things, sometimes quietly because they don't want to share their secrets. So it's happening. Some of it's quiet and it's in stealth mode right now. And it suffices to say that the capabilities of these agents are there, right? And now we're in this experimental phase, right? AI is still very cheap, and people are trying to figure out what they can do with it. So the possibilities are endless. We're in this golden era right now where we have immense frontier AI labs that are basically saying, try these things out, get used to them, get hooked on them, and experiment and see what you can do. So everything from automating like rote tasks and sifting through market data and things like this. Stuff that was like really hard to do, or that people thought they were very good at, but they weren't very good at doing as a human. AI can transform these things. So in the trading space, I've been hearing about people that are like crunching market data and trying to capture tiny arbitrage opportunities and things that you can do with traditional technologies, but AI almost trivializes some of this stuff. And then the ability to do like non-deterministic things like check sentiment, right? This isn't a new idea, but the ability to use AI to like look at what's going on Twitter and what are people talking about in social channels and things like this and get like a sentiment analysis, that's completely democratized, right? It used to be the exclusive domain of machine learning and data scientists and things like this who could crunch that data, but these tools are available to basically anybody now. So it's a wild Cambrian explosion of experimentation.
It's funny, I set up like a couple of weeks ago, I set up like a very basic OpenClaw agent, and I gave it access. Probably like security people will probably like yell at me for this. I gave it access to my Telegram account.
It's brave.
Because that's how I talk to OpenClaw. But I basically told it to your point about sentiment, to actually produce me a daily report of everything that's going on across my Telegram channels, summarize it, give me sentiment, give me all the things that are going on like, online as it relates to Algorand, and produce to me like a daily report. And it just does it every morning at 6 a.m. I get my report that's ready to go, and it says like, you have to reply to these and these and these people because you haven't replied yet. And so
Oh,
it's
nice. Do you have it
so
running on the Mac Mini in the basement?
it's running on a virtual cloud server.
Oh, I do have the Mac Mini, like the mimetic Mac Mini in the basement running OpenClaw. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
incredible.
yeah. I have it running on a special cloud instance. So it's
Very
isolated.
professional.
It's
Yeah,
isolated from everything.
I had to isolate mine as well because I don't trust it. I feel like there's an obligatory security warning here. Like people should probably not be using OpenClaw in ways that they don't fully understand if you have private material on your computer, right? If you're a developer, you got keys floating around, like be very careful what you do. We are a target of cyber attackers.
So what's the message to like developers in our ecosystem? So if like in the future, agents will be the main users of a blockchain potentially, right? To handle trade and to handle everything on behalf of humans. I think the interesting thing about that is that all of the technical complexities of using blockchains kind of completely disappears because agents won't care, right? Like they can use a blockchain perfectly fine without instruction, or maybe with instructions, but the instructions will be detailed enough so they know how
Right.
to overcome any technical hurdles. But so if that is the case and agents become kind of more primary actors on blockchains, how do developers in our ecosystem, projects in our ecosystem get ready for this? Do they all build MCP servers that agents can then interact with easily, or how can we kind of help them get ready for a future where agents become really important actors on chain?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I think there's layers to this. Just upskilling on AI tools and workflows and how the industry is evolving is super important. If you don't know what an MCP server is right now, you've got homework, right? And then thinking about if you have something to sell, how can an agent discover what I've got? How can an agent interact with my store or my service? We were talking earlier today, and I was like going through the Shopify storefront MCP server docs. So like follow along with what the big companies are doing if you're in startup mode, and it's very easy to copy this stuff with AI, right? And create an MCP server that would allow an LLM to call you and make a purchase or interact with your app, right? You want to create these avenues for agents to interact that don't suffer from any of the user experience, right? Like UI, UX friction that we've always lamented in crypto, right? The human experience of using blockchain has never been fun, right? Basically, nobody has solved that problem. AI agents don't care, right? So open the door to them and experiment with these things. And like, if you have questions, reach out to us. And we've got examples for things like X402, and you can spin up a facilitator if you want to be able to like verify payments to your app. There's a bunch of resources, and we'd be really interested to get into whatever it is that you want to expose to the universe of agents who could be your customers.
So you've opened up a whole new area. We could probably spend another hour just on that topic alone, which is the topic of agentic commerce. You mentioned Shopify, and
Yeah.
and indeed that is something that is actually on fire right now. I was driving to San Francisco yesterday, actually, and there was a big billboard along 101, which is the main kind of freeway from Silicon Valley to San Francisco. A big billboard along 101 for Stripe that says agentic commerce runs on Stripe. And so, wow, this is this is happening. And so
Yeah.
this, of course, an area where we as Algorand, we feel that we are very well suited as a payment rail for agentic commerce, right? Because we have
Right.
instant finality, we have super low fees, and so we've done quite a few things in that space, right? We're on X402 and the spec that we've submitted to Coinbase. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. It's definitely worth emphasizing that Algorand's capabilities are really uniquely suited to payments with the speed and finality and just ease of using the chain. I'm sure you remember sitting in the X402 like meetup event at ETH Denver in February, and some of these guys were talking about stuff that they'd been experimenting with, but they're like, "Oh yeah, it's slow. It takes a long time to settle. We're not sure how to solve for gas prices and things like this." We don't have those problems. So Algorand is an incredible blockchain for this payments use case, and particularly for these machine payment use cases. So X402 is for the uninitiated a very low level protocol that you can use to call a server and get a resource like a web page, for example. And normally you would just get the page back, but this is where the server can say, "Whoa, payment required." Give you some information, and then you can submit a payment, and it gets submitted to the chain and verified, and then they return the resource. And there are huge companies like Cloudflare that are implementing this at scale because the internet, right, invisible to most human users, is now like a wild west of AI crawlers and things like this. So there's all sorts of like battles being fought about content and how to get it and how to monetize it and so forth in this sort of like headless realm of AI driven bots, collecting content from around the internet for various purposes, whether it be commerce or just like scraping data for training the next frontier model and things like this. So if you're thinking about how to achieve this with blockchain, right, take a look at Algorand. There's a meme out there like stablecoins are the perfect use case for agentic commerce, and what you can do with something like USDC on Algorand is it's essentially risk free, smooth as butter, and we have a bunch of examples that you can get up and running and see like what does this look like in a demo app, and like what could this look like in your app with whatever it is that you're selling in really a matter of minutes.
And I think that's, to me, is very interesting. As I think it's a lot of developers don't realize this, but the idea behind X42 is also that you can get rid of API keys, right? Where as a developer, you don't have to sell monthly subscriptions to give somebody access to your APIs. You could actually give a per API, you could do per API pricing now. And so with the tooling that we have out there with Go Plausible, it probably takes like an hour for a developer to kind of make a premium X42 endpoint that will charge a user 1 cent to
Yep.
have access to an API. So if you're a developer out there and you have some APIs and you want to charge for those APIs, you could do it in like an hour or less, right?
Yeah,
So,
basically anything digital. Yeah, it's
yeah.
really incredible. It's got concept of a coin-operated machine on the internet, right? The standard that never existed for 30 years, but everybody's really coalescing around this now and working on the multi-chain, economy around these machine payments and thinking about how they can be communicated and settle and things like this. But you know, I try to stick to the facts and be extremely honest, but like I can say in good conscience that like Algorand is the best for this use case. It just ticks all the boxes.
Okay, so now let's talk about how as a developer you can get engaged. So
Yeah.
we have this thing called AlgoKit, which is a collection of our tools developer tools that help the people and help developers build stuff on Algorand, we have AlgoKit 4.0 that is coming up, right? What's the scope of it, and how much AI is going to be the focus of AlgoKit 4.0?
Yeah, it's basically our primary focus. There's a lot of stuff that's happened under the hood to create a great developer experience as well and make it more maintainable for us. But really, I've been using this analogy, right? If we're running a restaurant, right, we are designing a new menu item here. We're putting some like real creative thought work into how our AlgoKit tools can work with AI. This is uncharted territory, and we're getting really serious about how to ensure that AI doesn't make mistakes, like it knows where to find resources, it can write correct code without the foot guns, like anybody being able to use your logic sig and things like this. And it just goes throughout the whole stack of tools that we have in AlgoKit. And it's incredibly important at this moment when we're about to release the beta of AlgoKit 4 for people to tell us, like, what are you building? How are you using AI? How are you using this as a human? What works well? What doesn't work well? Like, we want to hear your complaints. Like, I want to hear people fetching about this so that we can fine tune these things.
Wonderful. And actually, when you take a step back, we've, like, as a chain, we've always really focused on making it as easy as possible for developers to develop on Algorand. Like, I remember AlgoKit 2.0 was all about the introduction of Python. Um, and no more like weird languages you have to learn in order to start developing on a blockchain. And then after that, AlgoKit 3.0 was TypeScript, and another major like language, that is now supported on Algorand. And so now AlgoKit 4.0 is all about, hey, we don't need those languages anymore. You could just use AI to build everything with
Basically,
languages, right? So
basically.
it's another major step in terms of reducing the barriers for developers to build Web3 apps. And so there's really no excuse anymore for anyone not to build a Web3 app anymore in Algorand, I would say.
Yeah, give it a try. All that foundational work over the past few years turned out to be incredible planning for AI in hindsight, because Python and TypeScript are arguably the two languages at which AI is best at writing code. So, have a crack at it. Even if you're not a developer, download VibeKit, give it a whirl, pop into our Discord, show us what you've been building in the Agentic Dev channel, and have a play around. The universe of possibilities that exist today is so much larger than it was at the end of 2025 that it's incredible. And I would even say to folks that um, looked at blockchain or tried to build something on blockchain in the past, things have changed enough that you should come back and give it another look, because the whole game is different now.
So when can people try AlgoKit 4.0?
So we're going to have a beta release of the Python and TypeScript stacks of AlgoKit coming out this month. And then we'll have a period during which people can either upgrade their existing project, tell us how that's looking, how that's going, or if you want to start something new and vibe code from scratch, you can do that as well. And we're going to be reaching out to the community and engaging with anybody who's got a complaint or a question, find out, like, how are you using these things in terms of what you're able to achieve. And sometimes that might be the human developer experience, or sometimes it might be, I gave my agent a prompt and let it run overnight, and this is what came out the other end. And we're going to be evaluating those outputs to see, are LLMs actually building correct and useful Algorand applications using everything that we've got, and then plugging the gaps where we see issues. So, I see our team, the developer tooling team, as being in this mode where we're going to be responsive to LLMs in a way that we historically have only been responsive to human developers that are asking for things, or have a problem they haven't figured out how to solve. The trouble is that AI won't pass the feedback to us automatically, but maybe we can automate that as well, and we'll just get that data flowing in so we can iterate quickly.
I can have Claude generate some PRs for you on GitHub, no problem.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea. We have some templates already, but this is a good idea actually, and we could build it into our skills as well. So if an agent comes up to a situation where it's not sure or it couldn't find the answer, it can automatically report those things. See, this is why we have to have these conversations. This is a great idea.
Wonderful. Well, Brian, thank you so much for joining us on Verifiably Random, and I can't wait to actually try AlgoKit 4.0 myself.
Yeah, have at it. Thank you for having me.
So now to the final segment of this episode. It's time to welcome Fred Estante, our head of DeFi, to give us a recap of ecosystem updates for this week. Fred, welcome.
Hey, Mark. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. What an awesome chat. How's it going?
Excellent, excellent. So what's new? What's new in the Algorand ecosystem?
I mean, so much has happened in the last 2 weeks alone. That's what I'm going to focus on today. But I think to be fitting for this conversation, I'm going to start by sharing some AI news of our ecosystem, right? So we were talking about DeFi, just a couple of minutes ago, and I was itching to jump in and talk about it because, of course, I'm a little bit biased towards DeFi. But hey, Pact, one of the leading DeFi protocols on Algorand, just released the PactFi MCP for OpenClaw. So there you go. All the traders that the Brian was talking about just a couple minutes ago. That's helping them, I guess, or maybe not. We'll see, right? TBD. Just kidding. Like for everybody interested, just go check it out. Another MCP coming to our ecosystem. March Madness is going super strong at Alpha Arcade. So many active markets. So if you're into sports and of course March Madness, you should absolutely check out the markets. But Alpha Arcade is on fire. They just recently launched a liquidity provider dashboard for real-time reward tracking. They also just reached $20 million of volume in a single day. That's impressive growth, really interesting. And obviously, sticking with the AI theme of our conversation, they just recently integrated with the Go Plausible's Algorand MCP. So, everybody using the Algorand MCP can also, just make their way into Alpha Arcade now as well. AI is everywhere. Just gotta pay attention, right? Cool. Moving on. Haystack also updated their pop contracts, a product they released recently, to prevent late entry sniping. And they also just launched very detailed chart metrics. So for all the people that are still doing their data analysis manually, and I think Brian's probably shaking his head somewhere because you got to use AI for this. But hey, if you're looking at charts and getting information, Haystack has incredible information for you at the candle level. Really cool stuff. Highly recommend everybody checks it out. Okay. Diversify, a new DeFi product in our ecosystem, recently released USDC bridging from 13 different chains using Albridge, which is another big integration that we announced not long ago. So it's really nice to see these big integrations coming to play and making their way into our ecosystem with usable products, right? Just making the entire experience better and more fun stuff to do in our ecosystem. Talking about fun stuff, Realms just announced that they're working on a new version of the NF Turbo game, and they dropped the teaser. It looks real fun. V1 was already fun, so I'm very much looking forward to see what V2 brings. It's an awesome game, so stay tuned. Moving on a little bit, the Algo token is now available on Post Finance, which is now reaching over 2.5 million customers in Swiss banks. Lofty AI just recently reached a milestone of over $5 million in rent paid out to investors of the properties over the last few years. And Lofty also just launched a completely redesigned marketplace with multi-selection filters, multi-city search, etc. Really nice experience for everybody looking to invest into fractional real estate. So I highly recommend you check out Lofty. They don't stop building, lots of updates every single week. Really cool stuff. Moving on and still talking about AI, our good friends at Go Plausible worked on the Algorand MCP server, which now lets the AI agents operate their own Algorand wallet and transact on chain. So, goes back very strongly to the conversation that the Marc and Brian just had. Just really cool advancements from the Go Plausible team. Kudos to that team. Para Wallet released Para Connect 1.5.2 that completely fixes Wallet Connect session issues. And if I could hear the Algo fam now, it's probably everybody's cheering and clapping, and see even Brian's clapping here. I think this is probably one of the best news ever, right? So kudos to the Para team, incredible stuff. So of course, if you're a builder, developer out there, make sure that you update your Para Connect. You're going to make all of your users happy. And of course, Para has a very strong pace. They keep releasing updates for the iOS and Android apps very frequently, every week or every other week, with lots of goodies, bug fixes, upgrades, etc., UI UX improvements. So just make sure to always keep your apps updated for the best experience possible. And to wrap up today, the team from NF Domains have basically worked a way that all the NFDs, the non-fungible domains, are fully compliant DIDs, decentralized identifiers, which is really cool stuff as we started to see more adoption around DIDs. And they also did another thing that was really cool is that they worked on the V3 NFD, so the latest version, and upgraded those to resolve to a real domain. So basically now you can use your own website, your own NFD as your personal website. Really cool stuff. Kudos to the team also for continuing to build a lot of interesting products and features and goodies for our ecosystem. And Mark, I think that's all I have for today. This is just like the top news from the last 2 weeks alone. There's so much happening in our ecosystem. And I think it's pretty cool to see that, the conversation today was about AI, and there's a lot of AI news embedded into what I just shared. And it was not on purpose. I just picked the most, interesting things. So it's just really nice to see all the work, that our ecosystem is doing, that our CTO office and Brian and the entire team are doing to create this tooling to enable all these different, tools, integrations and platforms. It's just really nice to see this all making its way into the ecosystem, and it's just like, powering and taking the entire ecosystem to a whole different level. So yeah, super exciting. Thanks, Mark. Truly appreciate for having me on. Always a pleasure to be here.
Thanks, Fred. I think it's fair to say this has been a busy week. So thanks so much for the overview. I think it's super exciting to see not just kind of the hype around AI, but actually our projects actually contributing to this effort and actually making their protocols and their products more AI enabled and AI visible. I think is a really, really important step for us as for Algorand and for the ecosystem as a whole. So it's so exciting to see that move.
Definitely.
All right, everyone. Well, I think that's all we have for today. Thanks for joining this episode of Verifiably Random. It is the last episode in season 3 of Verifiably Random. So we're going to take a small break and we'll be back very soon. We'll be back towards the end of May, early June for season 4 of Verifiably Random. Thanks to our guests for joining, and stay tuned for the start of season 4.